And the coverage of Debby continues. You can see some of the damage Debby incurred here. This was out in Clarkton, North Carolina. Cars almost completely submerged. Unfortunately, there have been a few fatalities associated with Debby, specifically the flooding and how dangerous the roads have been. Hydroplaning has been a big concern. And while Debby is just about to wrap up, the tropic season is far from over here. 2024 still promising to be a very active year. So use Debby as a tale of caution, similarly as what we used with Beryl. The hurricane season forecast from the Colorado State University did go down just a touch, only in the named storms. They're now expecting 23 as opposed to 25. The hurricanes, though, still 12, category 3 or more, still 6. So what this means to me is they might not be expecting as many storms to come, but still 23, a pretty big number. But anything that can form has a good shot at gaining that hurricane strength. I mean, over half of the named storms they're predicting here become hurricanes. Now, the question mark becomes, where do these hurricanes go? Do they remain fish storms? Do they impact the U.S., the Caribbean islands? I mean, that's where we have to wait and see as these systems form. The main development region as we get into August, September, October finally starts to open up with more tropical activity, although Beryl was a storm that was able to capitalize on the already warm waters in this area. Temperatures in the upper 80s to even near 90s, especially as you head out towards the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. Big reason why Debby was able to strengthen once it reached the Gulf. And then we had that lull between Chris and Debby, about a 2-week time span here where the tropics were quiet. It was our breather, and the only reason is because of the Saharan dust. That was a big factor here, a massive plume. Usually when we do see peak Saharan dust, but it was a very impressive plume at that. Now the dust starting to dial back and the tropics opening up again for probably some more consistent activity, or at least that's what the forecast calls for. With the latest tropics outlook, we have a new disturbance number 1, with a 50% chance over the next 7 days. So the chances ever since they designated this as a disturbance have been continuing to trek up. So that's just speaking to the National Hurricane Center, I should say, really keeping a close eye on this as well. The overall forecast is where it's going next, heading towards the Lesser Antilles, potentially cutting just to the north of the island of Hispaniola. Could there be United States impacts? Yes, but still too early to tell. So keep checking back in with us. We don't want to raise the alarm bells too quickly here. Take that breather after Debby, but know that this is out there. The mid-level spin in the Atlantic, we have that high pressure system, and that's what's steering these tropical systems out and towards the Caribbean. It's also been that high pressure that fought with the other one just off towards the west of Debby, keeping that system sort of stationary in place. But as we put things into motion into early next week, notice we have 3 areas here, tropical waves, that have the opportunity to potentially develop into that next named storm. Saharan dust is there, although look at where these storms are finding. They're finding the open pockets where dust is fairly minimal. And all it takes is that one little Goldilocks zone for these storms. And if they find it, and it's just right, we can get that hurricane or even major hurricane here, especially after Colorado State University saying those background conditions are definitely in place. The hostile wind profile is another key component to will a storm develop, will it not? And right now, we have pretty low wind shear, which means it will support these storms stacking up. So when they can get their strength, they could be a concern. Now, when a storm is a hurricane or a major hurricane at that, once it's finally developed, it can encounter a little bit of wind shear and still be okay. It's already this storm. It's in the early developing stages that wind shear is the biggest component in shearing them out and kind of taking them down from a 50% chance to nothing. So moving forward from the middle half of August on towards August 20th, we are expecting a lot more in the tropics, development likely just to the north of the Caribbean islands here, and development possible across the MDR. So still a lot and a long time to go until hurricane season officially ends at the end of November.